Welcome to the Organic Advisor Call Series. I'm your host, Sam Oschwald Tilton, and I'm the training specialist with OATS. This series is brought to you by the Organic Agronomy Training Service and Albert Lee's Seed House here in Minnesota. Albert Lee's a fourth-generation, family-owned, independent farm seed company, and they've got a full lineup of organic and non-GMO field crop seed and knowledgeable reps. Thank you to Albert Lee for their support of the series, and I'll put a link now to their website in the chat. OATS is governed by a consortium of universities, agronomists, crop consultants, nonprofit educators, and industry reps from around the country. And it's fiscally sponsored by the Organic Trade Association. These partnerships are at the core of the OATS mission. OATS provides science-based training for agriculture advisors. We're our collaboratively managed training program for ag advisors who work with organic farmers, transitioning farmers, and organic curious farmers, my new favorite phrase. We help to grow the domestic organic supply by strengthening the educational support network for agronomists, certified crop advisors, extension agents, NRCS, and other technical service providers. Our aim is for every transitional and certified organic farmer to have robust access to technical service expertise that provides unbiased, science-based agronomic support for their farming operation. This is our fourth episode this season. And there are two past seasons of the series available on YouTube. And we'll put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat now if that's something you want to catch up on, on a long drive, or you can just search by subject matter. OATS runs in-person training events, virtual courses, and publishes all manner of resources throughout the year. And in fact, we're releasing a series of fact sheets and videos focused on organic grain issues. You can find all those in our newly launched resource library, and feel free to see the link, and we'll put that link in the chat now just to that resource library. We're happy to have you today, and I wonder how you found out about it. If you haven't done so already, I highly recommend signing up for the OATS newsletter mailing list, just to keep up to date on these resources, in-person and virtual events, etc. And we'll put a link to that now in the chat. And finally, your feedback is important so that we know how we're doing and what we're doing well, and to get direction on bringing you the info that you want to know. I never want to be wasting your time. We do a brief poll before the episode, and it's just 3 questions, and then we'll do a short survey afterwards. The poll should be showing up nowish in your screen, and if you go ahead and click on it, again, it'll take you a ballpark 13 seconds, and then that with the short survey at the end helps us figure out how we're doing and what to improve on. We appreciate that. Okay, that's it for housekeeping. We did it. Let's get started with today's discussion. Our guests today are Seth Hesterberg, Matt Sattelberg, and Clint Brauer. Let me take a brief moment to introduce them, and then we're going to jump in, and we'll start with talking to Seth first about drones. Seth grew up on his family's organic grain farm in Illinois, and while he now does help on the farm, he also runs his own ag drone business. We've also got Matt Sattelberg, who you may recognize from our last episode on weed control and beans. I've been happy to know Matt for several years from my time in Michigan. He grew up on his family's farm in the thumb of Michigan, and for over 10 years now, he's been farming full-time with his brother on their certified organic farm. But he also runs Bayshore Sales, where he sells camera-guided cultivators. And he's gotten to see behind the curtain of this technology and meet with different European camera suppliers. So I always appreciate learning from Matt on cameras. And finally, in this triumvirate of tech, we've got Clint Brauer, who grew up on his family's farm in Kansas, worked as a tech executive in California, and currently farms in Kansas and is the founder of Greenfield Robotics. Okay. I assume that all of you are tuning in today because you want to learn something specific. As we're talking, I hope that you'll share your questions in the chat so that I can pose your questions to our guest. I'll also do my best to save 10 minutes at the end where you can ask questions yourself, but no guarantees since time flies when we're talking about agriculture. Okay, let's jump right in. Seth, I know that you're kind enough to join us from a field that you're about to spray to take advantage of a favorable wind speed. Very much appreciate you joining us, but let's kind of start with you and we'll get you out of here as soon as we can so you can get to it. But thanks a lot for taking the time, Seth.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. I thought maybe a good question to start with about drones. There's a lot of excitement about them, but drones and organic can be pretty different than drones and conventional. Can you tell us what are organic farmers using drones for?
So the 2 main things organic farmers are using drones for would be frost seeding of clover and seeding a few other cover crops as well. And then they also can use them for some biofungicides. Marone Bio makes one, Alltech makes another. And those it's a very limited thing. Some guys do it on corn, some guys don't. But for the most part, the biggest advantage ag drones have in organic is seeding, but you can also use them for different spraying purposes.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit more about the seeding? What do drones do well, and why is that the most popular uses for them in organic, at least in your business?
So obviously, a lot of guys grow wheat in their organic rotation, and they have frost seeded clover into that. And usually that entails somebody taking their side by side, strapping a little spreader in the back of it, and driving out across it when it's supposedly cold in the morning. If they're not doing that, they're using an air seeder on a large tractor, and they're going over top, blowing it on. If it's wet and is not frozen, that large tractor is out of the equation. However, those can be fairly accurate. If you're using a side-by-side to seed your frost seed your clover, you're going to be struggling with your accuracy and also your coverage. The drone, I'll throw pans out in the field, I'll spread across it a few times, set my width, and it has a scale controlled gate on it. So it's got a computer based algorithm that it runs its flow chart off of, and it applies the exact amount of seed that you want. And we never really have any gaps, never really have any thin areas in our clover. That's not weather related. Obviously, if it gets flooded out, it's going to have a thin area. But we have very, very good coverage with that. Using the drone to do that. I've done several hundred acres of frost seeding clover for guys.
And so it sounds like you're saying that the big advantage of drones for frost seeding is, one, the accuracy, and two, the ability to spread kind of regardless of field conditions. You know, if the tractor would get caught in the mud or whatever, you can still seed.
Yeah, you can seed at any given point in time above like 20 degrees.
Okay.
It's really just whenever there's a favorable wind speed, you go out and you do your job.
And you know, I have fun learning more about drones from all sorts of people, and some of the excitement is in plant diagnostics. But it was interesting in talking to you, and you said, you know, for you, there's not as many organic farmers using drones for plant health and plant diagnostics. Why would you say that is? How is kind of organic different than conventional in that way?
Most conventional farmers farm several thousand acres. They're covering a lot of ground, and if they do see their crop again, it's from the seed of a sprayer doing about 20 mile an hour at 120 feet wide. So they aren't really getting down in the nitty gritty. Obviously, they're using different apps with crop health imagery, and they're going out and they're scouting the red zones. But they can't see the exact same thing. Organic guys, no matter what width of equipment you're running, your max is going to be 60, maybe a few more feet. And you're going to be out there at a couple mile an hour, sometimes 5, 6, 7 mile an hour, and you're seeing the stand. You're seeing exactly how your crop is doing. So I personally feel like there's less of a place for crop health imagery in organic farming.
Okay. And maybe let's kind of talk numbers for a second. If a farmer wants to hire you to frost seed cover crops, how do you bill them? What do those numbers kind of look like? How do they compare to hiring the ag co-op to do it?
So my base rate is going to be about $15.50 for up to 25 pounds of seed per acre, which catches clover and that catches some cover crop work. If you go above 25 pounds an acre, my day becomes much less productive and I'm flying the drone much more. So I am going to be charging more for that because I simply am working a lot harder at it.
Okay. And then I guess kind of touching on the way that maybe your organic drone business relates to the conventional drone business. You were saying there's not really that you know of like organic drone operators. Maybe there's just not the demand. So there's drone operators in general that are working with conventional farmers, and then they're fitting in organic farmers as they can. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of conventional spraying schedule and how that influences when you're available to work for the organic farmers in your area?
Yeah, so my spraying schedule for conventional guys is basically July 10th through August 10th. So I've got about a full month where I am doing nothing but spraying fungicide for conventional farmers. So when you take that, I can sometimes fit in organic guys in the later end of that window, like early August, because organic crops are normally planted a little bit later. And I can do biofungicides and stuff like that for them. I just like to know ahead of time so that I have a little bit of preparation, and I can also pack it all together because I have to go through a pretty intense clean out on my spray rig to go from one to the other, and I don't want to do that multiple times.
Yeah. So I think this is where it gets interesting, or where we're really lucky to have you is there's it seems to me that ag drone operators are popping up like mushrooms all over. But that doesn't mean that every ag drone operator knows what they're doing, especially for organic. Let's see. On the one hand, it's too bad you got to leave us soon to spray, but on the other hand, you're right by your trailer. Could you pop out and give us a brief picture of what an ag drone trailer looks like, and also specifically, when people are deciding what ag drone pilot to work with, what are the questions they want to ask them to know if they're going to do a good job in general, and to know if they can do organic well?
Yeah, so I can take you guys out there in just a minute. I would start with just asking them about have they ever done an organic clean out? Do they know what's involved in that? Do they have products that they use? If they have answers to all those questions, you're probably pretty safe. If they've never done it, but they're willing to work with you, then you need to start asking questions along the line of, how is your trailer set up? What do you normally do to clean it out at the end of the season? Can you do that for me now? Can you run a triple rinse through of different products? How would that go? Another thing that I'll show you in just a minute is how my trailer is set up and how I only ever have water in my one tank. A lot of guys don't do that, and therefore I don't know if they could ever get full purity for organic spraying.
Yeah. Oh, and maybe one last point on that before you pop out to show us the trailer. What what are the kind of basic laws that people need to follow? Like, do you need to ask, does someone have a drone pilot's license or insurance, or does everyone have that no matter what? What kind of basics do people need?
Yeah, so basics that they need to be an ag drone pilot: you need your Part 107 certificate. If they don't have their Part 107 certificate, please do not hire them. That is, though, needed to fly any drone. So then you need to get your Part 137 exemption, which is dispensing of economic poisons from a aircraft. That's the same license that crop dusters have to get. I have to have that as well. You also have to get a large drone exemption, and then you have to get your state applicator's license, your state aerial applicator's license. And whether you're doing OMRI listed products or you're doing conventional products, you need to have all of those licenses because they are all still listed as economic poisons, even if it's OMRI listed products that you're spraying.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something you definitely want to check on. You also want to make sure that they're insured, because if they, for instance, do not do a proper organic clean out and they harm some of your crops, or they spray something wrong on it, you need to make sure that they're insured to cover that. I have a liability policy of several $1 million of damage in case if I were ever to do something like that.
Okay. And we all got to start somewhere, but maybe when I'm hiring an ag drone pilot, I don't want to hire someone who's just starting. What would you say, like, rule of thumb? What's a decent amount of acres that a drone pilot might spray in a season where you're like, okay, they kind of know what they're doing?
So this is my second year. At this point, I've flown almost 9,000 acres. And basically, if they fly less than 3,500 to 4,000 acres a year, they're probably not. They're probably just somebody who's doing it as a hobby. Some farmer who's got a drone, they want to spray a few extra acres, and then they might not have the proper licensing and insurance and all that. But someone in general who's buying an ag drone to go cover a bunch of acres, if they have like a year or two old drone, they're probably going to be covering about 4,000 to 5,000 acres a year. And that should be what they're planning on. And if it's their first season and they've already sprayed a few thousand acres, then just talk to them. see what their clean out methods are and everything. And if you guys can come to an agreeable place on that, then go ahead and hire them. You also want to ask them about their swath width. Some guys only ever run 32-foot swaths when they're spraying. I have never run a 32-foot swath because I've seen testing data showing that you cannot get coverage at a 32-foot swath. I run 28 to 30 when the wind is below 5 miles an hour. When the wind is above 5 miles an hour, I'm running 26, 25, 26. And a lot of guys don't do that because that means they cover less acres in a day. They get paid less money, and they're in it for the dollar, not necessarily in it for a repeat customer.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Seth. Yeah, give us a look at your trailer, and maybe in another episode we have time, kind of to really look at everything involved, but especially as relates to like cleanouts, as this is an organic episode. Yeah, what do you have on your trailer that really helps you with organic?
I was waiting on a car to go past. I'll get out now and show you guys. So. All right. Okay, so here is my spraying rig. I've got a trailer hooked behind my truck, and there is a top deck on the whole thing. That is my flight deck that allows me to not have to stand on the road when I'm flying. It also gives me the ability to view my drone at any point in time when it is in the field. So there's a lot of operators. Here, I'll turn this around real quick. There's a lot of operators who fly drones from their bottom deck of their trailer only. They never see the drone when it's out in the field. They never see the spray pattern it's got. Try and hire somebody that's got a top deck because they can see the drone and do a lot better job because of it. I always fly off the top deck even when I'm seeding. I tell my customers, get 50-pound bags of seed and I throw it all on the top deck just so that I can see the drone at any point in time and I don't have to stand in the road. So how I have mine set up as far as liquid is concerned is I've got my big 1,000-gallon water tank here. And this is the one that only ever has water. A lot of guys will run hot loads through these, and a hot load is a pre-mixed chemical load.
Great.
So when they run hot loads through those, you've got this flat bottom, you've got these legs, and I've got a port that goes down. I always have about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of water left in there. I can never get it completely emptied out until the end of the season. I go in and vacuum it. And then so where my setup's a little different is I do still take hot loads, but not in that tank. I'll go around here to the other side, and I take hot loads in this tank. This is a round bottom, center sump tank. I can rinse this out very easily, and it is a way that I can provide integrity, even just for conventional farmers, but also for organic guys, is because I will hook onto that with a hot load, fill it up, and I will only ever spray that out. I'll leave that tank empty on the days that I do hot loads. I also have these cone bottom tanks. These are normally what I use to do organic because they are obviously complete drain. But I have pumps, and I also have split pumps. Check to make sure that your drone operator has 2 pumps on his trailer. If they have a clean water tank, but they're sucking water out of their clean water tank and dumping it in their chemical tank or the chemical pump, it's going to be really hard for them to keep everything pure, including their clean water tank. I have a clean water pump that pumps into the top of each of my tanks through a separate line. So it only ever has clean water in half of my system. The other half goes into my chemical pump down there, which then can either recirculate all of the tanks or go up to the top deck. So when I do an organic clean out, I do a tank cleaner in each one of these, pump it from one to the next, and then out through the drone. And then I do a vinegar rinse from one to the next, out to the drone. And then I do a clean water rinse. So I always do a triple rinse. And that is how I ensure organic integrity for all the guys that I work for.
This is super helpful. Thanks, Seth. And at least it's clear to me that like your trailer was designed by an organic farmer, you know what I mean? Not just a drone pilot, but you had that in mind.
Yeah, I built this with the intention of spraying organic acres every year. So
A question from one of our listeners, and then we can probably let you go soon, is about organic record keeping. When you spray or frost seed for an organic farmer, do you give them any records? Do they just kind of use your invoice as a record? Yeah.
So what I usually do, if I'm doing any sort of spraying, I will type up a sheet saying how I cleaned the trailer before I started using Omri listed products. And so I will type up that sheet and I will send it with their bill. If they want me to, I can screenshot my flight logs showing that the drone went over such and so field on such and so day, and I can send that over to them via text. It is not quite like ag technology and tractors yet. I can't send you a zip file and all that. It doesn't really work that way at this point. They don't give actual coverage maps. They just show flight maps. But then with seeding, and that was the other thing I was going to say, is if you're picking out a drone operator for seeding purposes only, you can be a little less picky because all you have to make sure is that they used a compressed air hose to blow the tank out, pop the plate off the bottom, and make sure there's no extra seed left in there. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to those guys. Now, if they've got a seed tender or an air system that they fill their drone with, please ask them not to use it and that they'll just take 50-pound bags, because we all know 50-pound bags are clean. They've only got the product in it that you wanted.
And Seth, we can pretty much let you go. Is there anything else you want to say, or is there anything you feel like organic farmers advisors kind of commonly get wrong about drones?
So they're still pretty new. So a lot of people don't have too many misconceptions yet. The one thing is everybody goes, well, if it's at a 2-gallon rate, how can it do with something at a 20-gallon rate does? There's a few things. They do have very, very good coverage. I've seen that on the leaves of plants out in the field. The other thing is you create turbulence and the drone flies over and it pushes your mist down into the canopy. But there's one thing you're not thinking about when it's a drone. I'll just show the drone real quick here for people who have not seen them yet. There's the ag drone. It's a T40. It's a couple years old now. I'm going to be upgrading at the end of the season to something much larger and faster. But that is what I currently have. But there isn't much to hold on to chemicals on there. You wipe the props down, you wipe the frame down, you clean the tank out, run it through the booms, and it's clean. If you have somebody, say, ground rigging an organic fungicide on with a Hagee, it is very, very hard to clean that whole machine properly. You know, because if they're spraying fungicide, conventional fungicide, there is corn rubbing all over the entire machine with that fungicide on it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very hard to clean. This drone never touches the crop. This drone never has anything rub on it. So as soon as I clean it off, it is clean and good to go. Whereas getting a Hagee ready to do something for organic purposes would probably take a good day of somebody. Would probably take a good day of someone power washing the whole thing with multiple cleaners.
Okay. Let's see. Last question we're going to pose to you, and then we're going to get you out of here and also move on to our other great guest is, can you spray things that are stickier, like molasses or those type of amendments with that drone? Is there any limitations?
As long as it can be suspended in water for 10 minutes, that's all I need. Cool. My tanks all agitate. I shut the agitate off, fill the drone up. If they settle out really, really, really fast, I cannot spray them. But most things can stay suspended for 10 minutes, and the drone's obviously moving around while it's going, so it can kind of keep it in suspension. But if it's going to plug a filter, probably not, because my whole system is along with the drone is filtered, but then you can't apply them with anything else either.
Okay. Seth Hesterberg, Drone Crop Services out of Illinois. I always love learning from you. We'll let you go, but thank you very much for making time for us.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been great being here.
Right on. Are you finding this conversation useful? Hit the thumbs up button to help others discover it too. And if you'd like more conversations like this, click subscribe and turn on the bell icon for notifications. Okay. Well, we'll let Seth get back to it and turn to Clint. And Clint is the founder of Greenfield Ag, and I think he's going to show us a picture of his robot. But if you haven't seen a picture, dare I say, they're pretty cute, and it's fun to see them go through the field. And Clint, could you start by just explaining, and feel free to share a picture or something if that's helpful, but what your robots are, what do they do, and if any of our listeners, saw a greenfield robot out working, like what are we seeing? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. What you're seeing is for the past 4 years, we've been running commercially. We're in 6 states this year. And so we deploy these robots, and actually farmers deploying themselves now. And so they put them in fields and they go between the rows, a 30-inch row crop or wider, and they cut the weeds right at the ground. It's completely autonomous. And so no one's there except to change batteries and do maintenance. So that's what they do today. And next year we're adding foliar spraying to them as well.
Okay. Yeah, and can you walk us through the process of how these robots are getting used? Like, what do they do fantastically now? What are you hoping they'll do in the future? Yeah.
Yeah. My basically what I started out to do is get chemicals out of ag, right, without tillage. And so we really were focused on that. And so everything we design, and I can show you another picture later on all the different systems we have developing or in fields. But the idea is to be able to go no-till organic at scale. And so that's what we're doing essentially. So we started with weeding because it's something that affects both conventional and organic. In the conventional guys, they get a lot of pigweed resistance to their chemicals. So it solves that problem for them. And in organic, of course, you're fighting a lot of different things. So that's what it does very well today. The foliar feeding's testing on my farm and another farm, and it'll be rolled out to all the 100 bots we're building for next year. And after that, we've got a whole bunch of other things we talked to, but those are the 2 focal points. And the reason for that is you can weed by day and foliar feed by night when the humidity is high, and it's going to stick to the underside of the leaf a lot better.
And so when you're talking about fully autonomous, you mean that these can be going 24/7, whether it's battery or solar panel, or give us an idea of what that autonomy means. Like, do you need to import a map of your field from a drone to start with, or what's that process of autonomy look like?
Yep. Gets a heck of a lot easier every year, I could tell you that. But today what it looks like is you contract with us, or you lease, or you purchase a bot ahead of time. And so then we sit down with you, what fields do you want to run them on next year? And so then right now we currently have been flying the drones ourselves. So we'll see how it works out next year. But we map your field once you've planted it, and the earlier the better. And so we're mapping it down to 0.6 centimeters per pixel. And so it's highly precise what we do. We have our own RTK systems that we implement in your region that we've created ourselves. And so we're very, very precise on everything we do. And then that's it. From there, you get to take it. It's where do you want them to go today? You drop them off. Today, we're watching them from my farm, actually from the shed I have behind me. But next year, we think the farmers are going to be able to keep an eye on them themselves when it tells them that it needs help.
Okay. And, I know farmers are always very interested in efficiency, right? Like, how many acres can they cover in a day? When you and I were talking earlier, you said ballpark, farmers tend to like a fleet of maybe 3 to 4 robots. What's the nuts and bolts or the nitty gritty of how these are getting used? How many robots does one farmer use, and what kind of acreage can they cover in a day, or obviously depending on conditions, and what kind of conditions are better or worse?
Yeah, I think the simplest thing is it's going to weed about 7 acres a day is pretty conservative for next year. And we're at about 5 to 6 right now. And so that's weeding. And then if you foliar feed, you could either just run those 7, or foliar feeding can run at double the speed and skip every other row.
Okay.
And so you could get up 20 plus acres. It really comes down the intensity level, what you want to do. The reason we say 3 or 4 is by the time you go out and change batteries and do light maintenance, that kind of stuff, you might as well be getting a lot more done for each trip you're going out there.
Okay. And to be clear, the method of weed control is by mowing or cutting the weeds. There's no like soil engaging part.
No, we're all about no-till. We have a new system that gets rid of the issues with weeds in row, but typically we have 2 paths. With conventional farms, they do their normal burn down residual. We come in and clean up what's left between the rows post-plant. With organic farms, what we're seeing is everyone's going to a strip till type model. So you strip till, and then we maintain the cover crop between the rows or whatever's left at that point. So preferably a cover crop, of course.
Okay. And you said, let's see, I think you were saying that it can actually be harmful to their functioning if a farmer went through and cultivated first, right?
Yeah. If you're hilling, you're tilling and hilling, you know, up on the side and throwing the dirt, we have spinning blades that are pretty low to the ground. And so we're just going to cut a bunch of dirt. So it really doesn't make any sense at that point. So our preference is to work with you to, you know, try to avoid that to start with, since, you know, listen, I spent 10 years trying to solve this problem with existing tools myself on my farm. And I've grown 100+ different crops, distributed in 25 grocery stores, 35 restaurants. I've grown hydroponic. I've managed and built 10,000 square foot of greenhouses, outdoors, indoors, you name it. And so, you know, this is coming from some level of experience.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're doing a lot of kind of commercial trials or just on a lot of farms. What kind of crops is the robot working well in?
Yeah, we've always been organic soy, or conventional soy was number one thing we targeted, then cotton and corn, sunflowers. We actually been running a lot on pumpkins this year, and probably squash still. And so we've actually found that works pretty well. Even, you know, they're 5-foot centers on those, but 5 or 6 foot. But it seems to work really well for what some of those guys are doing. So I think we're on close to 10 crops at this point historically.
Okay. And can you give us some idea? Let's say an advisor or a farmer leaves this call today and they're like, my God, Sam's an incredible host. What a helpful episode. And I want to work with one of these greenfield robots. Oh, you don't have to laugh at that one, Clint. Come on, it's possible. What's the process look like? You know, of interacting with you guys? What kind of information does the farmer need to provide? And like, what happens before they have a robot that's on their farm working?
Yeah, I would just reach out to us via the website, or I'll flash my email again up there, or you can, but via the website, it's almost immediate. Jared or someone else on our team will get back to you, and we'll try to sort it out with you and talk about your particular situation. We want to make sure we understand what you're doing and set you up to be successful. So that's really key. I will show one other thing real quick here, just for context, is this is sort of the end to end, which is testing at some level, but we have another machine. It's kind of over here, if you could see it. But we go through, this is on 15 acres of my crops. We're going to be running on some organic farms next year, testing some more, but we take a cover crop and we create a mulch layer, and then we have a planter that's not shown here, but it plants into the mulch. And so we get rid of all the in-weed, and then we use obviously our weeder to run between the rows and foliar feed the actual crop. And then of course we have a cover crop attachment that we've been testing. This will be year 2, that also runs between the rows and scatters crop late in the cover crop seed late in the season to set up what's here on the left. So we are seeking to be end to end. This is all no-till, and we've been testing it for about 4 years in terms of the things on the left as well. So so we're really trying to drive organic, and even conventional to no chems, and organic to less or no tillage.
Okay. And what's the kind of timeline or lead time like? I'm assuming if someone got a hold of you, it would probably be for next year. But, and I know you guys are still kind of scaling, but yeah, what kind of lead time do you need to be working with a farmer?
Yeah, I would say the sooner the better. We do have reservations for all 100 bots for next year, but who knows what's going to happen as we paper those. So maybe there'll be a few that drop out, but I would say pretty soon we'll be papering for 2027.
Okay. And then, you know, one of my goals for this episode was both to get an idea of tech and organics now at this moment, you know, what's possible for growers, but also to get an idea for what's coming in the future, because, you know, Seth always says this with drones. Next year, it's going to be something better. And every year, it's always getting better and different. And you were just showing us kind of some of your work for the future with that botany bot. What do you see, whether it's the next 3 years or the next 10 years, what do we want to know about, like, where agriculture is heading in your view, you know, with the use of these kind of autonomous robots?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I mean, Seth was pointing out how much bigger a lot of conventional farms are, and there are big organic. But I think that to me, it's all about driving down per acre costs without a additional load. And once you take, and I've got slides to show this, but I'm not going to bother with it today. But once you start taking out that the human being needs to be in the cab, you can start focusing more on taking care of your crop and being there and doing more on a given field. And so I think that's the big trend. And so it's a question of how much you can do. And so that's why we've driven hard to have an entire system, because the more these machines run, the more efficient you become, and the more your cost per acre goes down, and the better you're, more healthy and vibrant and sustainable your crop becomes. And so
Okay.
you look at, just to put a number on it,
Yeah.
I don't know if you could see it, but somewhere in here, I've got a blue bot that was, I believe, 3 years ago running And 10 of those bots would sometimes get about 10 acres a day done. A single bot today is doing on average 4 or 5 acres a day.
Yeah.
Bots are doing over 8. And that's when we add the foliar spraying, that's at least going to double next year. So you're really looking at that increase in capabilities over the next 3-4 years that, this is it, right? And I'm going to leave with one last thought.
Yeah.
I've been in technology most of my life, except for the 10 years where I was trying to figure out how to farm without chems and distribute. And I've never been in an industry where technology drove the cost up, except ag. Makes no sense. So I normally show a slide with a John Deere 8320, I think R, going up by 80 grand over the last 8 years. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so your capabilities should grow as you go. At worst, it should stay at the same price in ag capabilities, but that's not what we're seeing across the board. So that doesn't make any sense to me, and that's certainly not what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great thing to be thinking about, or bone to chew on. Thank you for that. If I may pose to you a few questions just from some of our listeners. One is if you can give us some idea of price per unit.
Yeah, it's we're driving down. That's a discussion, and I'll tell you why. We've got to set up RTK in your neighborhood. 1, 2, we've got to sit down with you and figure out what you want to do, all the attachments, so we can foliar feed. There's other things coming. Do you want a track bot? Do you want wheel? Do you irrigate? You're going to want a track bot. So these are the type of things we want to talk with you about. So I'm not going to give a number out on this, but I will tell you this. It's going to cost at or below what it costs you to cultivate or anything else if you know your numbers, for sure.
Got it. Okay, you're saying factoring in an operator and tractor. Yeah, okay. And then with the RTK, if you're bringing that on someone's farm, is there any subscription price that's included with that RTK?
Yeah, that's all kind of depends on where we're at. But right now, typically we make that investment with the idea that we're going to work with more farmers in your region. So we did that this past year. Any given day, we're running 5 to 10 different fields in parallel across 6 different states. So typically at this point, we're willing to make that investment with you. We just might need a place to put on your farm. It's all solar powered. So
okay. And then question also about rolled rye and soybeans. People are planting through rye for soybeans. How does it work with that? Can it mow escaped weeds okay, even if they're kind of growing through that rolled rye?
Yeah, you're going to have to set your cutting deck a little bit higher to deal with that situation. Obviously, if you start running against the grain and you're too low, you're going to have a problem. But it just kind of depends on how fast it's breaking down and that kind of stuff. But certainly that's something. Now, what we've been doing is basically working with farmers. They go in and strip till or no till even in their crop. And then we come in, let the cover crop grow a bit longer, and then just cut it high. And then later can cut it lower on subsequent passes. So there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Okay. And then
we're learning a lot still, right? We're doing all this on my farm too. So it's, I made one huge mistake this year. I have a deep regret on 15 acres, but at least I'm making it on mine, not somebody else's, which is what we do.
Yeah, good. We're happy to learn from your mistakes. Can you give us an idea too, in the autonomous robot space, is it pretty crowded? Are there a lot of companies kind of doing what you do, or are you guys alone? One thing I appreciate about Greenfield is that you're driven by yourself, a farmer. I've met a lot of ag technology out of Silicon Valley, and you can tell it's designed in Silicon Valley and not by a farmer. Kind of if you can give us an idea of the bigger picture. Are there a lot of companies that we should be looking for, or maybe not really?
Well, I think one thing is we don't have any techniques that work with root crops. So I think on a root crop basis, you're going to want to do some sort of laser from that perspective. But I feel like on most other crops, we're nobody's even close, frankly, to where we're at. So not even close. And so it's just from the other thing I'll mention is you mentioned the driven by a farmer. I grew up with crappy equipment and hard to work on. And I still think farm equipment. There is nothing on our small machine right now that you can't swap out in 15 minutes by yourself. And in fact, most farms are having interns swap it now. And so I designed it that way. I still have a John Deere 6620, which is a dinosaur combine. And I still can't get over that they put the oil filter in the back of the engine. We don't do things like that. And so, so that's really an important part of what we're building. Smaller machines that you can easily access and deal with and swap really quickly and keep going.
Okay. Clint, fantastic. I might leave it there just for now, so we can learn from Matt about cameras, but feel free to stay on and kind of chime in as as you get applicable what we're talking about. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear about cameras because we're looking for more right now. So I want to hear what he knows.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Matt, turning to you in Michigan. First of all, thanks. It's always great to have you. Can you just give us an overview of generally what does a camera guided cultivator do, and what does it do well? You know, if a farmer's running a cultivator behind their tractor and all of a sudden they get camera guidance, what changes for them?
So something that is unique about the camera guided cultivator systems is that we don't have to have any other outlying technologies. We don't have to have RTK. We don't have to plant even in straight lines. I mean, the cameras can adapt to many different situations. Obviously, cultivating is a lot easier in a straight line. Let's hope we planted straight so it doesn't have to work so hard. And I've been working with camera systems for probably close to 12 to 15 years. The technology is improving. It actually is getting more reasonable, I think. It's still expensive. It hasn't gone down quite as much, kind of like Clint was saying. As we get better at this, it should go down. But it definitely has improved year after year after year. So, I mean, we can, one of the things that came out last year with the company that we work closely with is side hill compensation. So as a plant grows, it grows straight out of the ground. It doesn't grow or grow straight to the sun, not straight out of the ground. So your cultivator is 90 to the ground, but your plant is not. So it needs to be able to compensate for that side hill angle, the growth of the plant, and where to shift your cultivator. These companies are trying, the one that I'm working closely with is Tilton Haag out of the UK. They have software updates, software releases that are always free to the owners. So if you have a system that's, 1 year old or 15 years old, you're able to get the software release that they come out with pretty much every year. So whatever, it might be something small like making the font different on the button so that it's clearer to see when you're in the cab and the sun's shining on it, or it could be something big like the side hill compensation. But they're constantly listening to people like me that are working with them and on them, and also other growers too, people that test for them, things like that. So
okay. So let's say, so we've got a cultivator, we've got any number of cameras mounted on it. Could be 1, 2, 3, I don't know, maybe 4, and we'll talk about that. It's going on the back of a tractor. You want to be driving straight, but the cultivator is able to shift, I don't know, ballpark a foot in either direction, so that it can really just follow the row. And you were saying that, we love to trust technology, but there's times when a satellite goes down or GPS wasn't reliable when the crop got planted. And one thing that's nice about cameras is it's reading facts on the ground. You're not referring to something that happened weeks or months ago.
yes, it's very true. And I've had seen this instance myself where we had solar flares and things. The GPS did not work when we were planting, and coming back to cultivate, it was very good that we had camera guidance where it could follow that row. You brought up a good point. Something that you need to look at when you're looking at camera systems is your basic system is going to come with a single camera that you can mount on one side or the other of your tractor to look at your rows. How many rows you get to look at is another thing to think about when you're thinking of how many cameras you want. So if you have one camera, a single camera system, and you're only looking on the left-hand side of your tractor, when you get to that drowned out spot or to the point row where your rows don't go anymore, but your right-hand side still does, now you're not reading, you're not guiding. So you've lost all your guidance capability there. So definitely the dual camera systems are far advanced to the single camera in that aspect. The other thing to think about is if you have two and you have a problem with one, you can keep on going. All of our systems come with spare ports. They come so you can hook more than 2 cameras to them. Also, if something goes wrong in and amongst the actual hardware itself, you can hook into a different port, bypasses that other port, and you can keep on going. So the forward thinking of how to keep it a long-term piece of equipment running, you're not pinned up against just, I have one camera, one wire, that's it. You can keep going when you get into those bad situations. So
yeah, that's right. Two is one and one is none.
We can go up to we can go up to 7 cameras, I believe, inputs on our system, on a single system.
And would you say is the number of cameras kind of the main choice that a farmer would have when getting a camera guided cultivator, or are there other kind of options they're selecting? And to be clear, we're not talking about the cultivator because that's a whole other conversation that we had last episode, but just with a camera guided hitch, what are the kind of options that a farmer is choosing between?
Yeah, so you definitely want to know first, like I said, if it's updatable, if you get free updates or you got to pay for a subscription for updates. You want to know how many cameras you're going to get, if it's how many rows each camera can look at. You want to know if it has lights or if it works with lighting packages, if you have to pay unlock codes or subscriptions for the lights, because some you do, some you don't. You also want to know, you were talking about how they shift. Not all camera guidance hitches are true side shifts. Some of them are push pulls. And in a true side shift, it shifts immediately left to right. The push pulls extend and contract arms on your lower linkages, which then you have to drive in order to get to where your cultivator needs to be. So with a true side shift, you're instantaneously right where it needs to be. So there's not a lag time back and forth. It's also something to keep in mind is if you have a very large cultivator or a large cultivator in proportion to your camera, in proportion to your tractor. So if you got a 24-row cultivator and you're running a smaller frame tractor, even in a larger frame tractor on a 24-row, how is the back end of that camera and tractor planted to the ground? If you're running rubber tires on the ground that don't pin you to the ground good, when it shifts, if your cultivator's heavy enough and your tractor's too light, I've seen where it'll shove the tractor sideways. And if you're running GPS, then the GPS corrects, and then the camera has to correct, and you just kind of wiggle down the row. You don't really run straight.
Okay, so, it's got to be fun to watch, but maybe not good for the farmer.
Right.
A question I get all the time is a farmer will say, "Hey, I already have RTK. Is it worth paying for what ballpark for a camera guided hitch? I don't know, 50,000 or something. Yeah, if I already have RTK, is it worth getting a camera guided hitch?"
I would say yes, and I'm going to try and share my screen. This is the first time I've shared a screen, so we're going to try and do. Maybe not. Let's see.
Go for it. And I'll just say too, just to be clear, RTK we mean very precise GPS guidance on the tractor. So if the tractor can already steer itself very accurately and follow that A/B planting line, is it worth getting camera guidance?
So this is. Can everybody see that? Can you see this, Sam?
Yep, I can.
So this is where I say close isn't close to everybody. This is what I call close. So this camera hitch can run that close to the crop and stay on the row.
Well, what's your ballpark? How many inches apart are those cutaway discs in the front, Matt?
They're about probably 2 3/4. That's pretty tight. I mean, usually I try and stay 1.5 inches off the center of the row to the cut point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is what we're shooting for. We want to be that accurate, that close to the row if we can. Now, some guys will say, well, I don't want to prune my roots. I don't want to be that close. We don't have to go deep there, but we need to disturb that soil. And with a really well set up camera hitch, you can do this. If you have the newer stuff too. That's the other thing. Like I said, years ago when we started, you could have never done this with the cameras that we had. They were not accurate enough.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you don't mind, we said this could be interactive. I want to make Matt's argument on top of his argument a little bit for him. Is this tractor has RTK? That doesn't mean the implement's running the same place as the tractor. And that's so right. We deal with this. We get all the tractor data, but we still have to use our visual data on top of that. So I think the answer is if you want to clean cultivate, you need more than just RTK, especially if you got curves or anything like that. It's not going to work.
If you're running a 3-point planter on flat ground, it's usually pretty good. Right. If everything's shimmed up and you dry, everything's tight on your planter. And again, this gets a little bit off the topic, but you need to look at your planter row widths too, because not every planter, if it's 30 inch, is really 30 inch.
Yeah, get that measuring tape.
You got to think the same way. So if it's not 30, you need to set your cultivator up according to what you planted. This camera can see what you planted. GPS can't see what you planted. And if you're using a drawn planter, exactly, even on flat ground, you get into a sandy spot and you got clay on your other wing and it starts twisting, you have no idea until you come back and GPS goes down too. It's not, definitely not guaranteed. There's enough times where we've been to the field and it just doesn't work. And we've got our own RTK tower right at the farm. So you still have issues with it.
That's
So,
why we have our own RTK because we saw the same thing.
yeah.
You know, it's a real problem. Yep.
Tractor question from the audience, Matt. You were talking about, needing to have a certain amount of ass on the tractor so it doesn't get pushed around. Are there any other tractor limitations for using a camera hitch? Like, does the age of the tractor matter, or it's more just about the size?
It's more about the size of it, I guess. And like ours come with a coulter disc that runs in the ground on the hitch, so it plants your cultivator, plants your tractor and your 3-point hitch, so that when it shoves your cultivator, not your tractor. So.
Okay. Let's see. And any other tips? I guess another question we get all the time is people growing on hills, and it's always a pain, and the cultivator's sliding down the hill, and it's a pain. Just because you do so much cultivating, do you have any tips either with camera guidance or generally on how to cultivate on side hills?
With cultivating on the side, I don't have a lot of hills, but I do have some pretty steep ditch banks so there's a few of them around that I deal with. You really, if your camera hitch is working properly and adjusted right, you should be able to just keep your tractor in the center of the row. You don't have to lead it like you would without a camera hitch. It'll push itself up the hill.
Okay.
With our side hill compensation, you do have to still tends to be, depending on the steepness of the hill, you might have to nudge one increment to the right or to the left. Before they came out with that release on the software, you were nudging 4 or 5 increments, so it did improve quite a bit. So, and
Okay.
a curve, I would say, is similar to the way that you would cultivate a curve without a camera hitch. You still have to lead around the outside of the curve, or it's better to than to try and stay in the center, because we've got, I think, 15 inches from center on our side shift. But when you start going around a curve, depending on how tight the guy running the planter planted it, you might use all 14.5 inches of that by the time you get around. So.
Okay. And just a reminder to everyone, we got a few minutes left, so feel free if you've got questions, just put them in the chat there. And Matt, could you also just give us an idea of dollars and cents, like what does a unit run people? Are there different kind of levels? Yeah, what should people ballpark if they're interested in a camera hitch?
So ours are right around that 42,000. That comes with 2 cameras and lights. We set all of ours up standard with 2 cameras and lights. Just the price difference, if you start adding them on after the fact, it gets more cost prohibitive. And that from somebody that runs it over acres and acres and acres. I don't use my lights a ton, but there are those days where that rain's coming and you need to get done, where it makes a difference. The nice thing about the system that we run, like I said, if you are looking at camera hitches, make sure you ask if you do get lights, is it a paid unlock? Because some of the systems that I've worked with before will only work with their light, with their hue, and they're extremely pricey lights. Where like this system, it starts with an LED light. If the light burns out, you can pretty much go down to your local light supplier, wherever that be, and replace it with the same color light, as long as it's a white LED. So
yeah, and maybe one last question, and it's minor, but it can be a big deal. Is most of the camera hitch companies that I know of are out of Europe, and there's a pretty big time difference there. And when something goes wrong, it can be hard to get a hold of someone. Yeah, what are there reps that are in the US? What's it like for a farmer when something goes wrong and they need to get a hold of someone and fix the problem?
Yeah, so you've got pretty much all of them that I know of that are running really well are from Europe. The ones that we work with are, like I said, they're from the UK. They respond really quick. I'm working with them to be more of their US contact person for repairs and for troubleshooting. So not just on Hatz and Bickler hitches, but anything that's running a Tillet and Hag system. I already work with people that are running different systems than what I sell, because I've been around them enough. So it's important, very important to not just buy it from somebody that sells them, but somebody that has worked on them, understand them, uses them, something like that, because the minor details can make a big difference to how these work. And somebody that's not familiar is pretty tough to figure it out.
For people that want to kind of learn more hands-on, or especially before they, plop down 40, 50,000 bucks, I think it was this summer you guys had a nice hands-on kind of camera guidance workshop at your place. Is that something you guys will do next year, or people can just go to the Bayshore website to keep up on that?
Yeah. Either watch our Facebook page, Bayshore Sales Facebook page, or our website. We every year we do a training in the spring. We try and do it as close to planning as we can get it, so that people don't forget by the time they get to their cultivators. But it's free to anybody that wants to come. Just ask the RSVP, so we make sure we have enough space. It's right on our farm. We have the camera hitch inside the shed, set up, ready to go, and people can do hands-on setup, walk through how to get it all dialed in and set up. And we also have one of the reps from the UK here. Yep. So we have experts on hand if you have other questions that I can't answer. So we want to make it as easy. We don't want people to struggle, and that's what I try and when I talk with people that buy these from us, or people that call, is don't just continue to struggle. Give me a call. If it didn't work, call me. We'll try and figure it out. I hate wearing it, but I have one of them stupid headsets, and while I'm running my tractor, I try and take everybody's calls at the same time. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I was bummed I couldn't make it this year, and I'll hope for next year myself. Okay. Well, it's happened. You've spent another hour listening to the Organic Advisor Call Series, and who knew, time flies when we talk about ag. Seth, Clint, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to work with me and sharing your experience with all of us on this episode. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you,
Before
Sam.
you all leave your desks, if you could take a moment to fill out our evaluation. It'll take you approximately 53 seconds, and your opinion really helps us improve these calls. I'll put a link to that survey in the chat now. And this is the third Organic Advisor Call episode of this 2025 series. And we'll hope to see you for the next episode, Tuesday, August 5th, when our topic will be organic record keeping with both a farmer and an inspector. And we'll be speaking with them to understand how farmers can make their organic record keeping easier, including a new record keeping app that a farmer just developed here in Minnesota. Until then, I wish you a safe summer and just enough rain. Thanks a lot for tuning in.